My name is Lauren, and I grew up in a small house that always smelled like fresh bread. My dad took over the family bakery from his parents, and I loved helping him knead dough after school. My mom was different. She was a realtor, always dressed in fancy suits and high heels, and she earned more money than Dad. One evening, when I was 12, Mom called, "Lauren, come set the table." I was skinny and awkward back then, more interested in reading than anything else. "Coming," I shouted, folding down the corner of my page. As I set out the plates, I could hear them starting up again. "Another slow month, Tyler," Mom said, sounding frustrated. "When are you going to get it together?" Dad's voice was quiet. "Please, Joyce, not in front of Lauren." "Oh, who cares?" Mom snapped. "She should know what a failure her father is." I gripped the edge of the table, trying not to cry. This kind of scene happened a lot in our house, Mom putting Dad down and Dad trying to keep things calm. I knew it wasn't just about money. Mom felt trapped in a life she didn't want. "Lauren," Mom barked. "Where's my wine?" I rushed to pour her a glass, but my hands were shaking, and some wine spilled on the tablecloth. Mom's eyes narrowed. "You useless girl, can't you do anything right?" Dad stepped in. "It's just a little wine, Joyce, no big deal." Mom glared at him. "You're too soft on her. No wonder she's growing up to be as pathetic as you." I ran to my room, burying my face in my pillow. I loved Dad so much, but I couldn't understand why he put up with how Mom treated him. As for me, I learned to stay out of the way, to be quiet and unnoticed. The next morning, I woke up to a strange silence. No smell of baking bread, no sound of Mom's heels. I crept downstairs and found Dad sitting at the kitchen table, looking pale. "Where's Mom?" I asked, but deep down, I already knew. Dad handed me a note in her neat handwriting. It read, "Tyler, I can't do this anymore. I'm leaving with Larry. He can give me the life I want. All this small-town nonsense isn't for me, Lauren. Don't bother looking for me. You're just dead weight. Tyler, you're a loser, and you've made our daughter one too. Goodbye and good riddance." I stared at the note, feeling like I'd been hit in the stomach. Mom was gone. She had left us, calling Dad a loser and me useless as her parting words. The next few months were a blur of court stuff and emotional chaos. Dad filed for divorce and asked to have Mom's parental rights taken away. I remember sitting in the cold courthouse, holding Dad's sweaty hand as we waited for Mom. She never showed up. I drifted off while the adults talked, catching bits like abandonment and unfit parent. When it was over, Dad squeezed my hand. "It's done, Lauren," he said softly. "The divorce is final, and your mother's parental rights are gone. It's just you and me now." I nodded, feeling both relieved and sad. Life got tougher after that. Dad threw himself into work, spending long hours at the bakery. Even though I was only 14, I started taking care of most of the house. I'd come home from school, do my homework, and then start on dinner and laundry. For years passed like this. Just after I turned 16, everything changed again. Dad came home one day, looking shocked and sad. "Uncle Ryan died," he said, sinking into a kitchen chair. I hugged him tight. "I'm so sorry, Dad," I said. He hugged me back, then pulled away, his eyes wide. "Lauren, you won't believe this. He left me everything, almost $500,000. I'm his only relative. I don't even know what to do with all of it." But Dad figured it out fast. He used part of the money to improve the bakery, upgrading equipment, and expanding the menu. Within a few months, our little bakery was the talk of the town. Dad hired more people, kept the place open longer, and before we knew it, he was opening a second location across town. By the time I turned 17, Dad owned 3 successful bakeries, and we didn't have to worry about money anymore. I quit my after-school job to focus on my studies. We even took our first real vacation, a 3-week trip to Europe. As the years passed, Mom became a distant memory. Dad dated now and then, but he never seemed interested in marrying again. I didn't push it. We were happy as we were. High school graduation came and went in a rush of caps in the air and hugs. I had worked hard, and it paid off. I was headed to State University to study finance. The morning I was about to leave, Dad handed me a small box. What's this? I opened the box and found a key inside. Dad smiled. It's your graduation gift, an apartment near campus. No more worrying about dorms or rent. I stared at him, speechless. Dad, I can't accept this. It's too much. He waved off my objections. You earned it, Lauren. Now go make me proud. College flew by. I focused hard on my studies, determined to make the most of this chance Dad had given me. When I wasn't in class or studying, I was interning at local financial firms. By the time I graduated, I already had a job lined up as a junior financial analyst. On my first day at work, I stood in front of my apartment mirror, straightening my blazer. You've got this, Lauren, I told my reflection. Make Dad proud. The job was challenging, but I loved it. Every bonus or raise I earned, I saved and invested. Dad's advice echoed in my mind. Money makes money, Lauren. Be smart with it. The years passed, and by the time I turned 34, my investments had paid off. I owned 3 more apartments in addition to the one I lived in, and they were bringing in steady rental income. Life was good. Then came the phone call that changed everything. Lauren, Dad's voice sounded strained. Can you come over? I need to talk to you. When I arrived, I found him at the kitchen table, looking older than ever. What's wrong, Dad? I asked, feeling a tightness in my chest. He took a deep breath. It's cancer, honey. Stage 4 pancreatic. The world seemed to shift. No, I whispered. This has to be a mistake. But it wasn't. The next year was a rough journey of treatments, ups and downs. I spent every free moment at the hospital or with Dad, making his favorite cheese soup, even when he was too sick to eat it. One crisp autumn day, I arrived to find him sitting in his favorite chair, looking serious. We need to talk, Lauren, he said, patting the seat next to him. The doctors say I've got 5 months, tops. I shook my head. No, they're wrong. We'll get another opinion. He reached over, gently. Lauren, it's okay. I've made peace with it. I'm selling the bakeries. Everything will go to you. You'll be set for life. I pulled away, wiping my eyes. I don't want your money, Dad. I want you. He smiled softly. I know, sweetheart, but this is my way of taking care of you, even when I'm gone. The next 6 months were both precious and painful. We talked more than ever about everything and nothing. I memorized every line of his face, the sound of his laugh, and the smell of sugar and flour that clung to him even now. Then, on a quiet Sunday morning, he was gone. The funeral was a blur. Afterward, I sat alone in Dad's empty house, holding his favorite apron tightly. The lawyer had already been by with the paperwork, and as Dad promised, he left everything to me. I used the money from the bakeries to buy 3 more apartments. It felt right, like I was building something lasting, just like Dad had. A year after Dad passed, I was finally finding my balance again. Work kept me busy, and managing my rental properties gave me a sense of purpose. I was settling into a new normal, or so I thought. Then I got a call that turned everything upside down. Lauren, it's your mother. I'm back in town, and I'd like to see you if you're willing. My mind raced. Part of me wanted to hang up, to stay away from the woman who'd abandoned us. But another part, the part that still held on to the little girl I once was, couldn't help but feel curious. Okay, I heard myself say. Let's meet at Don Jose's Mexican restaurant tomorrow at noon. The next day, I got to the cafe early, my stomach in knots. At exactly 11 o'clock, I saw her walk in. She looked older, of course, but still elegant. But she wasn't alone. A young girl, maybe 18, walked in behind her. Mom spotted me and hurried over. Lauren, darling, you look wonderful. And this is Anna, your sister. I felt like I'd been hit. My sister? We sat down, and Mom began to tell her story. She explained how Larry, her lover, left her soon after Anna was born, how they struggled to make ends meet, and why she decided to come back to her hometown to start over. I heard you have rental properties, she said, her voice full of hope. I was wondering if maybe, she trailed off, but I knew what she was asking. I looked at Anna, who was staring at her hands, clearly uncomfortable. I thought about Dad and how he'd always taught me to be kind, even when it was hard. I thought about the scared little girl I used to be, wishing for her mom to come back. Okay, I heard myself say. I have an apartment that just opened up. You can stay there. Mom's face lit up. Thank you, we'll pay rent, of course. I raised a hand. No rent, just utilities for now. As we sorted out the details, I watched Anna. She looked so young, so out of place. I remembered being her age, feeling lost and alone after Mom left. So, Anna, I said, trying to sound friendly, are you a junior in high school? She nodded and finally looked me in the eyes.
Yeah.
It's weird starting at a new school for senior year. I felt a pang of sympathy. I bet. Listen, if you ever need help with anything, school stuff or just someone to talk to, I'm here, okay?
I said.
Anna gave me a small smile. Thanks. That means a lot. As we left the cafe, Mom hugged me again. You're an angel, Lauren. I know I have a lot to make up for, but I hope we can start fresh. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. That night, as I drifted off to sleep, I couldn't shake the feeling that my life was about to get much more complicated. For better or worse, my mother was back in my life, and I had a sister. Only time would tell what that meant for all of us. The months after Mom and Anna returned were strange. Mom quickly found work as a realtor, sliding back into her old life as if she'd never left. Anna enrolled at the local high school for her senior year. I kept my distance, unsure how to handle this new family setup. Now and then, Mom would call or stop by. Lauren, darling, thank you again for the apartment, she'd say, smiling warmly. You've been such a blessing. I'd nod, feeling uncomfortable with her endless gratitude. It's fine, Mom. I'm glad I could help. Anna and I slowly developed a cautious friendship. I'd help her with math homework or listen to her college plans. It was nice, in a way, having a sister, but there was always a barrier, the weight of all the years we missed. Then, Anna's graduation came around. I watched from the back as she accepted her diploma, and I saw Mom beaming with pride. For a moment, I let myself wonder what life might have been like if Mom had never left. The very next day, Mom showed up at my door, unannounced, her face red, her eyes blazing. We need to talk, she snapped, pushing past me into the living room. I followed her, confused. What's going on? She spun around to face me. Don't play dumb. I know about the apartments, Lauren. All 4 of them. My stomach dropped. How had she found out? What about them? I asked, keeping my voice steady. You've been hiding this from us, she shrieked. Living the high life while Anna and I scraped by. I felt my temper rising. Excuse me? You're living rent-free in one of those apartments. That's not enough, she spat. Half of those properties should be mine. I'm your mother. I couldn't help it, I laughed. It was so ridiculous. You can't be serious. You gave up any claim to my life and my things when you left us. Remember? No parental rights, no child support. Her tone suddenly softened. Lauren, please think about Anna. She needs money for college. If you just sold one apartment. Absolutely not. I cut her off. Anna's education is not my responsibility. How can you be so selfish, she wailed. After everything I've done for you. That was the last straw. Everything you've done for me? I stared at her, shocked. Are you talking about abandoning me and calling me useless in your goodbye note? Or maybe you mean living rent-free in my apartment for months? Mom flinched, as if I'd slapped her. For a moment, she just stood there, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Then, without a word, she turned and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. I stood there, shaking with anger and hurt. How could she? After everything, how could she try to guilt me like this? I sank onto the couch, my head in my hands. Deep down, I'd known letting Mom back into my life was risky. But I had hoped. Well, I wasn't sure what I'd hoped for. As my anger faded, a deep sadness took its place. This woman, who should have been my support and protector, was a stranger who only wanted to use me. And what about Anna? What was I going to do about her? 3 weeks after Mom's outburst, I was getting coffee at my usual spot when I noticed the barista giving me strange looks. As I waited for my order, I overheard a bit of conversation at a nearby table. Can you believe it? Charging her own mother rent when she has all those apartments. I froze, barely able to believe they were talking about me. But over the next few days, I caught more whispers, more side glances. It seemed Mom had been busy spreading her twisted version of the story to anyone who would listen. Then came the Twitter post. I saw it during my lunch break and almost choked on my sandwich. My daughter Lauren has 5 apartments she rents out, making a fortune, but she refuses to help with her sister's college. She's forcing me to pay outrageous rent when I can barely make ends meet. I'm heartbroken that my own child could be so greedy and selfish. The comments poured in, each one a knife to my heart. How could she do that to her own mother? What a horrible person. Friends, relatives, even old classmates I hadn't spoken to in years. All of them jumped on the bandwagon, shaming me for supposed greed. Not one of them seemed to remember or care that this was the same woman who abandoned me as a child. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, my boss called me into his office. "Lauren," he said, his face serious, "we need to talk about this situation with your mother. It's starting to affect the company's reputation." I felt the blood drain from my face. "Sir, I can explain." He held up a hand. "I'm not asking for details, but I need you to resolve this quietly and quickly. We can't have this kind of drama associated with our firm. Understand?" I nodded, feeling numb and unable to speak. Back at my desk, I saw an email about unpaid utilities for Mom's apartment.
Just great.
With shaky hands, I called her.
"What do you want?" she snapped.
I took a deep breath, trying to keep calm. "Mom, there are unpaid utility bills for your apartment. We agreed you'd cover those, remember?"
She scoffed.
"Oh, please. You're making so much money from those apartments. You can afford to pay a few bills." "That's not the point," I said, my patience wearing thin. "We had an agreement." "An agreement," she interrupted, her voice cold. "Like the agreement that you'd help your family? What good did that do us?" I sat there, phone in hand, feeling like my world was falling apart. I tried to be kind and generous, and this was my reward. With a heavy heart, I made an appointment with a lawyer. "Miss Stevens," the lawyer said, looking over my case, "you have every right to evict your mother. She has no lease, pays no rent, and you've given her plenty of notice." I nodded, feeling both relieved and nervous. "What do I need to do?" He handed me a document. "This is an official eviction notice. Serve it to her. If she doesn't comply, we can take legal action." With the paper in hand, I drove to Mom's apartment, my apartment really. My hands shook as I knocked on the door. Mom opened it, her face twisting in annoyance when she saw me. "Oh, it's you. Have you finally come to your senses about selling an apartment for Anna's college? Anna's already picked out her school. Tuition's due next month." My shock turned to anger. "Are you serious? After everything you've done, you're still making demands?" "Don't be so dramatic," she scoffed. "It's the least you can do for family." That was it. I handed her the eviction notice.
"Here.
You have 31 days to leave." Mom stared at the paper, her face going pale. Then, without warning, she exploded. "You ungrateful little brat," she screamed, her voice echoing through the apartment. "After everything I've done for you." I stood my ground. "Everything you've done? You mean abandoning me, spreading lies about me?" She lunged forward, raising her hand. I flinched, but she didn't hit me. Instead, she grabbed my shirt, spitting insults in my face. "You're nothing. Do you hear me? Nothing but a selfish, heartless." I managed to pull away, fumbling for my phone. "That's it. I'm calling the police." Her eyes widened, but she kept shouting, her words growing more vicious. By the time the police arrived, I was shaking, tears streaming down my face. I showed the officers the eviction notice and explained the situation as calmly as I could. One officer turned to Mom. "Ma'am," he said, "I suggest you calm down and discuss this civilly with your daughter." Mom sneered. "Civilly? With her? She's trying to throw us out on the street." The other officer turned to me. "Miss Stevens, legally, this is a civil matter. We can't forcibly remove her without a court order." I'd suggest trying to work this out between yourselves or going to court if needed. I nodded, feeling defeated as the police left. Mom's smug look made my blood boil. You won't do it, she taunted. You don't have the guts to take your own mother to court. I stared at her, this woman who had given birth to me but had never truly been a mother. Something inside me hardened. Watch me, I said, my voice steady. Before she could respond, I turned and walked away. As I reached my car, I heard the apartment door slam behind me. Driving home, I thought about what lay ahead. A court battle, more drama, more pain, but maybe also a chance to finally break free from her toxic hold. The day of the court hearing arrived, and I felt sick as I walked into the courtroom. I saw Mom and Anna on the other side. Mom's eyes were red and puffy, while Anna looked like she wanted to disappear. The hearing began, and Mom put on quite a show. She cried, her voice breaking as she spoke to the judge. Your Honor, she sobbed, my daughter has turned so cold-hearted. She's trying to throw her own mother and sister out on the streets after everything I've done for her. I clenched my fists trying to stay calm. Then my lawyer stood up, and I felt a wave of relief. Your Honor, he began, his voice steady, I'd like to present some evidence that tells a very different story. He laid out the facts. Mom's abandonment when I was 13, the termination of her parental rights, her failure to pay child support. He showed the judge the rent-free arrangement and the unpaid utility bills. But he wasn't finished. Furthermore, Your Honor, we have evidence that Mrs. Stevens is not in the financial situation she claims. Mom's head snapped up, her eyes wide. My lawyer continued, Mrs. Stevens owns an apartment in another city, left to her by a former partner, which she currently rents out for a substantial monthly income. The courtroom fell silent. The judge turned to Mom, his expression stern. Is this true, Mrs. Stevens? Mom's face went pale. She opened and closed her mouth a few times before finally whispering, Yes, Your Honor. The judge's voice was cold as he gave his decision. This court grants the eviction. Furthermore, Mrs. Stevens will pay back rent for the month she stayed in the apartment rent-free. Mrs. Stevens, your actions are truly unacceptable. This case is closed. The gavel came down with a loud bang, echoing through me. It was over. We'd won. As we left the courtroom, I saw Anna. She looked lost and confused, and my heart ached for her. This wasn't her fault. I walked over to her, ignoring Mom's glare. Anna, I said gently, I'm sorry it came to this. If you need real help, you can still reach out to me, okay? She nodded, tears in her eyes. I'm sorry, Lauren. I didn't know. I gave her a sad smile and walked away, feeling like a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. In the weeks that followed, Mom and Anna moved out of my apartment. I heard they'd gone to live in Mom's other property. I didn't try to contact them, and they didn't reach out to me either. As I stood in the now-empty apartment, memories of the past few months ran through my mind. The hope I'd felt when Mom came back, the pain of her betrayal, the stress of the court case. But beneath it all, I felt free.